Hello and welcome to Page and Screen with John Paul Sarni. I'm very excited to be getting into today's episode because it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place. Because as a producer of film and television, one of the things that I do is I spend a lot of my time reading books, often reading books before they come out, and finding things that should be or could be or I want to be seen as adapted into television series and as movies. So some years ago, about 5 years ago now, I read a book and decided that it should become a television series, and it just has. So I'm very happy to be talking to the author of that book today. The author is Ragnar Jónasson, who is an internationally best-selling author of thrillers and mysteries, including The Darkness, which we have just produced alongside CBS Studios and True North, which is airing in different parts of the world at the minute, including across a lot of Europe in on Sky Showtime, and coming soon to other territories. It has premiered locally in Iceland on Seaman, and it is the first in a series of books featuring an incredible detective who is played by Lena Olin in the series. And so I'm very happy to talk about the process a little bit because that's why a lot of people tune in. So please welcome to the show Ragnar Jonasson.
Hi. Thank
Hi,
you.
good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You have been running about on a book tour because you have a new book that has just come out in both the US and the UK, which is called Death at the Sanatorium. And so Death at the Sanatorium is very much in the Ragnar Jonasson cinematic universe because it continues to tell the story of Hulda, who is our lead in The Darkness, which is the first in a trilogy of books. But so it's very exciting that it's finally come out in the US, and this will be, if I understand it correctly, this will be a new series, correct? That takes place, well, tell us when it takes place.
Yeah, so this series basically starts it's a spin-off from the Hulda series, and The Darkness, the book and the series starts with Hulda basically leaving her job, doing her one last case because a young man is taking over. And so in the books, this young man is not introduced to the readers in the Hulda series. But when I finished that series, I always thought, who is this guy? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Would the readers like to get to know him? Get to know the man who sits in Hulda's chair. So that's how this series started. But right away I decided that he would love old-fashioned crime, golden age crime books. Yeah, similar to my interests. And this is the first in a series, I think, a trilogy. And so the lead protagonist is a young criminologist who is starting a job in Reykjavík with the police, but he also owns a small bookstore and collects first editions of crime books, and so he's always reading. And so it's a golden age type of story, and even have like a reading list at the beginning of the book. And each of these three books, there will be a reading list of recommended golden age books to read.
I saw that, and it's great because, usually when I read books and there's references to other books, I start making my own list. So it was very helpful to have you do that for us. So that's wonderful. Now tell us a little bit about, from your side of this experience. You and I have just made this television series together, which is starting to come out into the world. And 5 years ago, I read it, I called your agent, I told her that I loved it, and then we optioned it. Tell me from your perspective, aside from it, taking a while, which it does because we had COVID and some other things in the middle there, what the experience was like at the beginning, because this was not the first book that you've optioned to a television or film producer.
Yeah, so the initial reaction is always, and as you say, this is not the first, not even the second or third deal that I've done for my book. So it's always like great anticipation, but still you always know that this is completely out of my hands, and there's a million pieces of a puzzle that need to fit into place for the project actually to happen, and to see the series or the film on the screen like we're now done with The Darkness, which is amazing. And so you sort of, it's cautious optimism, and you go in and you hope for the best, and you try and trust the people that you've partnered up with to do their best, and try to stay informed, but not, you know, not have too strong of an opinion because in this case, I mean, it was basically left to you guys and CBS and True North, and you found Lena Olin and Lasse Hallström to do this series, which is, incredible and incredibly talented people. So I think in this case, it paid off to trust the experts on this, and but it's an incredible journey to take for an author, um, because I mean, it may not be the goal when you write a book, but of course, it's in the back of your mind that it would be lovely to see your characters come to life. And as I say, it's completely out of your hands if that happens or not. You can, of course, push for it or try and make it happen, but ultimately, it is someone who has the capabilities and the money to do it. And then when we premiered the film here in Iceland, to see Hilda come to life on screen is an incredible moment, and to watch your story, being adapted to another medium. Yeah, it's like a dream come true, really.
That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, we loved working on it. And for anyone who is listening who has not either seen the series or read the book before, it is about a detective played by Lena Olin who is at 65 years old, quickly being pushed out of the police department and takes on one last cold case that gets her into a world of trouble in the center of Reykjavik. And, I wanted to ask you because it was perhaps an unusual thing, and because you're going through the process with other books and other producers, we chose to keep the book set in Reykjavik, but do it in as an English language series. And so did you have feelings about that? Or I mean, I think this is potentially the first time that there's been an English language series that's truly set in Iceland with a predominantly Icelandic cast on television there.
Yeah, I think it is the first time, and probably the first time an Icelandic book has been adapted for a TV series, and that's all done in English. And I was really positive towards this idea from the start because I mean, it's all about you know the audience and who is able to watch and enjoy the series. And as long as it was set in Iceland and we had the majority of the cast was Icelandic, it is a very Icelandic production. It is you get to see Reykjavik, you get to see the nature, the snow, feel the cold, and so the language is just a way to get this to a bigger audience. And I think that was an experiment that was worth trying. And having seen the show, I think it worked perfectly. I mean, you know, I think this was the right idea, and I think actually this could be the start of some sort of trend to adapt Icelandic work into into an English language series.
Well, it's also from our side, it's really wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to cast, different actors from, from either from the US, the UK, all over Europe, because it does open up that pool of talent, which is great. And so we're very happy to have the incredible Oscar nominated Lena Olin as our lead. And it was a great process all around. It was wonderful to live in Iceland. I was there for the better part of a year, as you know. But take us back a little bit to the beginning of the process, because when we first started working on this, uh, you know, there's all different things that novelists have to go through that are sometimes contractually there and sometimes not, about, how much they'll be involved or how much work they'll do. But what we did is at the very beginning of this, we did sort of remotely, we put you into the room with some of the writers room, which actually was in another country, and just start to talk to them. So tell me a little bit about your experience of, working with the writers and, having you just had I think a few conversations with them, but what that was like, and how you directed them, if at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was like so many things, with this whole project. It was a bit surreal because in that case, I mean, I think I probably met them once virtually or more than once, and actually once in a room in Reykjavik, and it was a strange feeling to meet a group of talented writers who have come together to write a manuscript, and it's all because of this one book that I wrote, and that is a strange feeling. And the same when you see this on the screen you see these characters and they keep their names from the book, and there are scenes, uh, they're all pretty much from what I wrote, and that is uh, there's something really surreal about that whole experience, and so I think that was the first feeling. I mean, these people are going to adapt the book that I wrote, and feels like a lot of responsibility, and hoping the book is good enough to be the basis of a whole script and the whole production. And but when I met them, I mean, I had I listened to their thoughts and answered all the questions they had. And I think there was, only a couple of points that I felt very strongly about, including the ending of the book, which I won't go into in any detail. But I said, it's important for me that we keep, the ending, or sort of how this story concludes, which was a fight I had to have, you know, in one or more territories as well when the book was published.
Mm.
Um, so I think that was, that was the only thing that I said. Otherwise, I completely trusted these people to do the job, and create a new work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing is that all of that happens, and you have these conversations, and then ostensibly you are removed from the project for a little while all the other things are happening, while we are raising money and finding locations and doing casting and all these sorts of things. But then when we finally were able to open up the office and be really truly on the ground in Reykjavik, we were filming all over the city, and you actually were able to, because you live there, you were able to come spend quite a lot of time on the set. And we had some some troubles putting the show together because there were 4 or 5 volcanoes that went off. We had dozens and dozens of earthquakes. We had to film on a glacier. There were all sorts of challenges that we had to get around. But that aside, what was your experience on set? Was it what you thought it would be? Was it different at all?
It was different. I mean, it was the first time I'd been on a movie set, really, and the first thing that struck me, I think, was just how many people are in the room. Actually, you imagine it's just the cinematographer and the actors, and the director, but it's like 100 people in one room. Everyone has a very clear role, and everyone's doing their job fantastically well. And you just, sometimes I felt like I was really getting in the way, because I was trying to stand in the corner observing this, people, going about their jobs, and there's so many small details that you have to, get right to be able to do something like this. And that was the first thing that really impressed me. And then, of course, you know another thing is basically the number of takes you do per scene is sometimes overwhelming. And as we had a friend of mine, Dan Brown, on set once, as you remember, and he said that filming is not a spectator sport. And I think that's it's a lot of magic, but it's also a lot of work. You just if you spend a whole day there, you see one scene, two scenes
Yeah.
over and over again, and it's all about getting this perfectly right. And with a director like Lasse, seeing him at work also was incredible.
And we did have, as you we did have, a few challenges, like I said, but some that even I think you helped us navigate, because there were issues. We got into it with sometimes too much snow. There was one day when there was actually just too much snow on the ground, and we had this location picked out, and it was a perfect spot for a club scene or like a party scene, and we were not able to do it. So as I recall, we had to ring you, and you had to help us find another location, which was amazing and looks great on film. But I think that happened in a matter of hours, which is probably only possible because it's a smaller city where you're so well connected, so many people, and you were able to help us out and organize it. A scene that we shot, I think, in the at a venue as part of the Edition Hotel.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great it was a great location in the end, and a lot of fun. And I mean, that was a very memorable day. Also, I mean, there was a lot of great memories from just being on the set. Of course, we spent a few days literally in the mountains doing these glacier scenes,
Hmm.
and it was so freezing cold that it was. even living in Iceland for my whole life, pretty much. I mean, I never spent so much time outdoors in such temperatures, and that was really hard, for me. So I can only imagine how it is for the staff and for the actors who have to, like, be have to do their job in these conditions. And there was one scene also that was really an incredible day to watch. Is basically the opening scene of the series where a man is hit by a car, and that was actually something you guys did in real life, and you filmed it more than once with a stunt actor. And and I remember when I saw that him being hit by a car for the second or third time, I was really regretting writing that scene into the book. I felt so sorry for the guy, but it's all part of this magic.
Yeah, it's all part of the magic, and he was a great actor and very professional, and part of that is just making sure that everyone is safe all the time. So it's a lot of taking safety meetings and things like that, and sometimes you have to pace out those scenes and you rehearse them at like a half a speed or a quarter of a speed, so you know exactly what the movements are and how they're going to land, and also just where you place the camera. So there's lots of little tricks. And we were trying to get around, quite a lot of things that were happening. And I mentioned earlier that there were, we did have the volcano was going off, quite a bit, and we did have some crew members that live near the area of Grindavik, where a lot of homes were truly, in trouble, and there the earth literally opened up. And so tell us a little bit about, basically a year on, how has Iceland changed? I mean, there was this conversation about, is Grindavik going to come back as a city because it was its own real proper community. And so the question, but they had to close down the schools and people had to leave, and there was a lot of life happening around us while we were filming. So what is the state of things in Iceland now, and the Blue Lagoon and all these things that were open and closed and open and closed?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I mean, this town Grindavik it's still more or less closed. I mean, people don't haven't returned. I mean, a few people have, but mostly it's abandoned, and that's of course because the volcano is just so close, and it's still. There was another eruption only a couple of weeks ago that and ended, went on for maybe 2 weeks or so. So one more, and I mean, I think we can expect more, on the same area. No one really knows, but so the Blue Lagoon is also closed, so that has been kept open to the extent possible, but it's been, closed as soon as there is something going on, of course.
Yeah.
But I think people, are trying to navigate around this threat, and understanding it, and trying to maintain normality as much as possible. Although Grindavik has not really reopened. But other than that, I mean, it's safe to come to Iceland, of course, as you know, even in spite of this. And so if you drive from the airport when like when this last eruption happened, just drive from the airport into town, you see a live volcano on the way. I mean, it's incredible in that sense.
Yeah, it's very surreal because I think twice I was on the plane, you look outside and there's a volcano erupting, and the plane just lands and you come into town. So it was really an incredible experience, and I think that, it's so interesting that you are able to really focus on not just, uh, Reykjavik, but, other parts of Iceland as well. I mean, in Akureyri, and you have some of your other books are set in different parts. Do you always wanna keep all of your books, do you think, in Iceland? Is that you part of your, part of the style of your writing, that you wanna just focus on different areas of the country, or would you ever write a book that's set elsewhere?
So mostly, I mean, for all these books I've done before, it's all Iceland set. Most of them really are been focused outside of Reykjavik. I mean, the darkness is spends more time in Reykjavik than many of the other books, and so the series does that as well. But I love, doing these small places in the north, in the east, where are like remote, abandoned villages, or mountain villages that are isolated and picturesque, and because there's a lot of places like that all around Iceland. One book is set near a lighthouse in the north or the northwest. So I love traveling around and using different places because there's a lot to choose from. It's a big country, even though it's not a lot of people living here. But
And you did one of your books, the book Reykjavik was set there's this little island that is just a few minutes away, I think, from Reykjavik, and that's a
yeah,
book you wrote with, the former prime minister. So tell us, what was that process like? Because she was prime minister at the time, so I imagine very busy, and it was what was that collaboration like, and will you continue it?
yeah, that was another surreal experience. Really, I mean, she was sitting prime minister when we wrote the book, and also when it was published, and when it was published outside of Iceland as well. So she did a lot of, not a lot, maybe quite a bit of traveling with me to promote the book,
Mm.
which was strange to have a prime minister with traveling with us. But it was a great experience. I mean, she's a good friend and really smart, and so we worked well together. It was a nice collaboration. It went really smoothly, and whenever there was a fight, I let her win because she's the prime minister. Um, but there wasn't, the arguments were really, about minor details and never anything substantial. I think we just settled on the story very quickly and plotted it out, in great detail, and then we just started writing chapters and sending chapters to each other, and even some of them they went back and forth, so we can't even remember who wrote what in some instances.
That's the best possible way, right?
It was, it was, and so hopefully, I mean, she's left office now, so maybe we'll have time, to do another one. That would be something. But that was a lot of fun. And going back to your previous question, I think setting a book outside of Iceland, that's a book that I'm just finishing now. Is a book that's set in the UK back in the 1930s. So and that's a bit of an experiment for me to try and do like my own Agatha Christie type of story that has nothing to do with Iceland. It's just my way of writing a golden age detective story, and that was one of the most fun I've had writing a book. Was just to do that with all these classic type of characters, this old country house by the sea, and a lot of clues and red herrings.
That's great. And is that a book that's part of a series, or is that a standalone book that you
Well,
have?
it's not a long book, but it could be could be the start of something. But
Great.
it's in yeah.
Amazing. Well, and before I let you go, I did wanna ask a little bit because, and have you tell us a little bit about this amazing festival that you do every year, the Iceland Noir Festival, where you've had people like Dan Brown, and last year I saw Hillary Clinton speak about a thriller novel that she wrote or co-wrote. So tell us a little bit about this festival. When is it, and what can we expect?
So it's middle of November every year. So it's always the weekend before Thanksgiving, before US Thanksgiving. So we have a lot of tourists from the US coming to the festival, and from the UK and elsewhere, and so it's held in a small or in an old church that's just near my office here downtown by the city center, and um, so we started focusing on crime fiction, but it's turned into like a more wider range, and a little bit of focus on films and TV as well. So I mean, for example, with this year we're having Robert Zemeckis, director, coming over, and actors Brenda Blethyn and Lasse Hallström and Lena Olin are coming as well, plus a lot of authors. So we have a lot of fun. I mean, I do this with a friend of mine, Irsa Sigurðardóttir, an Icelandic author, and we co-chair this and have done that for 10 years, and as just like a hobby on a volunteer basis. And it's just a lot of work and a lot of fun. But I think we try and keep it up for a while, if we can, because it's just incredible to get all these authors and actors, directors to Iceland to speak about what they do. And yeah, so I think we do something with the darkness this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be there and you and I will talk and, with Lasse and Lana so we'll talk about the process. I guess we'll have this conversation, but probably even a little bit deeper and with more opinions and more sides to it. So that'll be really fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking forward to seeing them. I mean, it was, as I say, it was inspiring to work with both of them, and it was actually so inspiring that over Christmas, when we were, in the middle of filming, I sat down and started to write a new book in the Hulda series, which was a trilogy for 10 years, and now it's 4 books, a trilogy of four.
Ama amazing. And do you know yet when that 4th book is gonna come out? Because all 3 books are out in the US, the UK, a lot of places. So does it come out first in Iceland and then some months later it will go to other countries?
Yeah, so it's out in Iceland before Christmas,
Okay,
and I think in the new year it will be out in quite a few territories like Scandinavia and Germany and France, and hopefully the UK, US not too late after that.
amazing. And one final question, really, before I let you go, is which I ask everyone, whether it's in Reykjavik or London where you spend a lot of time or anywhere else, what is your favorite bookshop, your favorite independent bookshop to go pick up a pile of books? Because I know you always have a pile of books at the ready. Your Instagram is full of it.
I'm gonna name two. One in London, of course, which is a bookshop called Goldsborough Books. That's owned by a friend of mine, David Hadley, and that's in Covent Garden.
They're
And
great.
yeah, they are fantastic. They have a lot of first edition, lot of crime focused. But also, there's a bookshop that I just visited like earlier this month, the Mysterious Bookshop in New York,
Oh,
and 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 that is a bookshop I visit every time I go to New York, and I've been going to New York since I was, I think, 20. It's the first time I went there, and went there with my parents and my brother at the time. And the first thing I told my parents was, when we go to New York, I need to go to this mystery bookshop, buy a lot of Golden Age mysteries, and I've been going there ever since. And so that's one of my favorites as well.
well, it makes perfect sense, and you really have carved out an amazing career for yourself as a novelist, and also we're very excited to see you continue to do work in film and television and support that. So, if people want to check out the new book, which is Death at the Sanatorium, which is out in the US and also the UK, where they have a nice, sometimes with spreages. Is that word made it to Iceland? Sprayed edges?
But
Spreages?
not as as in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the UK edition, but yeah, really, really fun. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful working with you and very excited for everyone to continue to see the episodes of The Darkness as it comes out around the world, and hopefully we get to do it again. So thank you so much, Ragnar Jónasson. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.